You are swinging a heavy iron broadsword in a pitch-black room. You are exhausted. Your lungs are burning. The heavy steel is dragging toward the floor, and you are surrounded by unseen adversaries who simply watch from the shadows, waiting for you to collapse from your own wasted effort. Modern society equates constant, agonizing struggle with honor. People believe that if they are perpetually stressed, endlessly grinding against insurmountable obstacles, and constantly clashing with everything in their path, they are somehow achieving greatness. Ancient strategic masters would look upon this modern frenzy with profound pity. They would see a generation of completely blind combatants, thrashing violently at illusions, fighting wars that never needed to be fought, and losing their minds in the process. We are living in an era where 99% of people operate with zero strategic vision. They confuse mindless aggression with true strength. They are entirely blind to the invisible currents of power, advantage, and terrain that dictate who actually wins and who loses. You are going to master the ancient art of the bloodless victory, the supreme strategic sight that allows a true warrior to dismantle an opponent before a single weapon is ever drawn from its scabbard. You will learn to map the psychological terrain of your daily life with such terrifying clarity that every obstacle becomes a tool and every conflict becomes a simple puzzle you have already solved in your mind. This is about replacing blind, exhausting effort with cold, flawless awareness. 2,000 years ago, the battlefields of ancient China were painted with the consequences of brilliant strategy and foolish arrogance. The legendary strategist Sun Tzu demanded a level of situational awareness that most commanders found impossible. He wrote in The Art of War, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." This was not a poetic metaphor. It was a mathematical certainty. The warlord Cao Cao understood this principle down to his very bones. Cao Cao rarely relied on pure, overwhelming force to crush his adversaries. Instead, he relied on phantoms. He understood that an enemy who is confused is an enemy who is already defeated. Imagine a misty canyon at dawn. An opposing army marches forward, their armor rattling in the cold air, preparing for a brutal clash. Suddenly, war drums echo from the hills to the east. Banners flutter wildly among the pine trees. The opposing army pivots, rushing toward the sound, expending their energy, bracing their shields against a massive attack. But when they reach the hills, there is nothing. Only empty wooden barricades and banners tied to branches, blowing in the wind. Cao Cao had manipulated their perception. He made them fight the wind. By the time his actual forces arrived from the west, the enemy was exhausted, disorganized, and completely out of position. He won the terrain without striking a blow. Half a world away, the ancient Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca applied the exact same philosophy against the massive, heavily armored legions of Rome. Hannibal did not just march blindly into enemy territory hoping for the best. His intelligence networks were meticulous. He studied the frozen alpine passes, the depth of the rivers, and the exact psychological blind spots of the Roman generals. Before the Battle of Lake Trasimene, Hannibal noticed the morning fog that rolled off the dark water. He did not see bad weather. He saw a devastating weapon. He placed his forces precisely where the fog would hide them entirely from view. When the Roman columns marched blindly along the narrow shore, they were completely swallowed by the mist. They were annihilated, not just by Carthaginian iron, but by their own utter blindness to the terrain. Hannibal knew the landscape better than the people who lived there. He knew the enemy better than they knew themselves. Modern life is your battlefield, and you are marching blindly into the fog every single day. You step into your workplace, your business ventures, your personal negotiations, without ever mapping the terrain. You get drawn into petty arguments. You waste massive amounts of mental energy trying to force your will upon unyielding circumstances. You are fighting the wind. Stop fighting. How many times did you exhaust your spirit this week, reacting to an entirely fabricated crisis? You see a barrier, and your immediate modern instinct is to smash against it, to outwork it, to scream at it until it breaks. You burn the midnight oil. You drink toxic amounts of caffeine. You carry a mountain of anxiety in your chest, convinced that if you just push harder, you will eventually break through. This is the ultimate symptom of strategic blindness. Modern culture worships the person who bleeds the most on the battlefield, but the ancient warrior pities the soldier who had to draw his blade at all. You must undergo a radical transformation of how you perceive resistance. When you apply ancient warrior sight to modern problems, everything flips. The chaotic office politics that used to drain your soul suddenly look like a simple board game. The aggressive competitor in your market is no longer a terrifying threat, but a predictable force that can be easily redirected. The inner procrastination that haunts your ambitions is no longer a mysterious curse, but a clear psychological terrain that you can navigate around. When you cure your strategic blindness, you stop reacting to the loud, distracting drums in the eastern hills. You see the empty banners for what they are. You preserve your energy while everyone else completely drains theirs. The blind person walks into a room and instantly looks for who to argue with. The visionary strategist walks into a room, identifies every exit, understands the motivations of every silent observer, and quietly positions themselves where victory is simply the natural outcome of gravity. To anchor this profound sight into your modern existence, you must adopt 3 specific, unwavering practices pulled straight from the ancient tactical manuals. The first practice is the dawn reconnaissance. You will execute this every morning, precisely 15 minutes before the sun crests the horizon. Do not look at any glowing screens. Do not consume any digital noise. You will sit in total silence with a blank journal and a dark pen. In this quiet space, you will map out the terrain of the coming 24 hours. You will identify exactly where the ambushes are waiting. Write down the specific conversation that might trigger your anger. Write down the precise hour when your discipline usually falters and the shadow of procrastination creeps in. By writing these down, you illuminate the dark corners of the battlefield. When that annoying colleague attempts to provoke you at noon, it will not be a surprise. You already saw it happening hours ago. Because you map the terrain, you will simply watch them execute their predictable maneuver, and you will feel absolutely nothing. You will step aside, and they will stumble into the empty space you left behind. The second practice is the empty fortress deflection. This is your active tactical maneuver for the middle of the day. Whenever you are confronted with aggressive, misdirected energy from another person, a sudden demanding email, or a chaotic shift in your environment, you will not offer a solid wall for them to strike. If you meet force with force, both elements shatter. Instead, you will open the gates to an empty fortress. You will yield space. When someone raises their voice, you will lower yours to a whisper. When an obstacle demands immediate panic, you will respond with eerie, unsettling stillness. You will agree with the premise of an insult just to watch the attacker lose their balance. By refusing to engage in the direct clash they desperately want, you force them to overextend. They will swing their heavy emotional broadsword at thin air, throwing their own weight off balance. You win the exchange simply by refusing to be where the blade lands. The third practice is the twilight audit. When the day is done and the sky turns entirely black, you must judge your own actions with cold, merciless objectivity. You will not celebrate your victories. You will hunt for your blind spots. Ask yourself exactly where you lost your temper. Where did you use brute force instead of clever misdirection? Where did you fail to see the fog rolling off the lake? This is the most crucial habit of the true strategist. Sun Tzu demanded self-knowledge above all else. If you only study your opponent, but remain ignorant of your own hidden weaknesses, your own vanity, your own desperation for validation, you will inevitably be crushed. The twilight audit burns away your ego. It replaces pride with terrifyingly accurate self-awareness. You are addicted to the struggle. Let that sink into the quiet space of your mind. You have spent your entire life believing that everything has to be incredibly hard to be worthwhile. But as you integrate these ancient practices into your daily rhythm, a profound silence will begin to settle over your life. You are shedding the heavy, clumsy armor of the reactive amateur. You are no longer the exhausted foot soldier marching blindly into the mud because someone shouted an order. You are ascending to the high ground. You are becoming the silent architect of your own destiny, sitting calmly on a ridgeline, watching the petty skirmishes of the world play out exactly as you predicted. You will begin to notice details that nobody else sees. The slight shift in a person's tone, the hidden motive behind a seemingly innocent request, the invisible currents of opportunity flowing beneath the surface of a chaotic market. You are opening your eyes for the very first time. You are stepping into the elite echelon of minds who dictate the flow of reality, rather than being swept away by it. Claim your sight right now. Leave the dark, exhausting room of modern reactivity forever and step into the brilliant, calculating light of the ancient strategists. Subscribe to this philosophy and forge your mind into an instrument of flawless precision. We have only just begun to map the ancient pathways. Soon, we will plunge into the profound silence of Miyamoto Musashi and the terrifying power of the void. Stay sharp, watch the terrain, and never let them see your blade until the battle is already won.